What is up, guys, and welcome to the Score Esports podcast. As per usual, I'm your host, Colin McNeil. In the booth with me is Actually, it's Daniel Rosen. I pulled a fast one on you.
Okay, you're doing it for the audience. You just didn't forget who I was.
No, I didn't. Okay. You look very distinct from Josh.
I'm significantly shorter, which caused some issues when we got into the booth.
That's right. We had to readjust the webcams for you, Dan. Josh is a very tall human being. And I'm sitting next to a lovely empty chair. We always have to show the empty chair when one of us is not here, of course.
The ghost of Josh Burry.
Yeah.
He's hanging out with that big, tall cow over in Australia.
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly what he's doing. You have to be on Twitter to know that joke for sure. But today we've got an awesome guest. I was reminded a few minutes ago by our guest before we went on the air that last year, late last year, we did a sort of blitz of NALCS team owners before that league went into full franchising mode. Well, guess what? We're about to do the same thing for the formerly EULCS, now the LEC, and the very first lineup in that, we'll call it that season of the Score Esports, is of course Kieran Holmes-Darby. He is the co-founder and the managing director of exceL Esports. They're one of the new players in the EU League of Legends scene. We've got him here today, so let's bring him on.
Hey, Kieran, how you doing?
Hi guys, thank you very much for having me on. As I kind of mentioned off air before we came on, massive fan of the podcast. Watched all of that first season that you just spoke about with the NALCS franchising, obviously picking up tips here and there from owners on how we want to approach the process. So yeah, thanks so much for having me on.
Oh, it's our pleasure. We're super happy to hear that you're aware of us and that you watched that, like we said, season. That was a fun one to do. And spoiler alert, there'll probably be a few similar questions thrown your way over the course of this podcast.
Absolutely no problem. Prepared for anything.
I must ask you, I can only see the corner of a lovely piece of art in your room. Is that an original? What is that? Do you have a Picasso hanging in your room?
No, it's nothing like that. I think my stepmom painted this, actually. She's really into her art, and she gave it to me for my flat. So I've put it up, and I think it's really nice.
Well, the corner that I'm seeing looks really nice.
It's very Picasso-esque, actually. Very like cubist. Not that I know anything about art, but yeah, it's very interesting to look at for sure.
Well, that's what you want out of a great piece of art, I guess. Not that I know anything either.
It's an interesting, lovely corner, is what we've determined.
That's right. That's right.
Let's go with that.
Now, Kieran, your organization, exceL, is not only one of the new players to the, I keep wanting to say EULCS, to the LEC, but among the new ones, you're perhaps the one that I think a lot of our viewers would be least familiar with, because some of the others have brands that come from other segments or regions of esports, or legacy brands, for example, the Refresh Origin partnership. So I guess to start off with, I'm wondering if you can give us your elevator pitch on who exceL are.
Yeah, of course. Let's put me on the spot to start off. Why not? So yeah, exceL is a leading UK-based esports organization. We're here so that our playing talent can compete in the highest level of global esports. To date, I think we've achieved the highest level of UK esports and played in a lot of tier 2 European competitions. And we're kind of coming from a region of esports that is relatively underdeveloped, and by that I mean the UK. It hasn't had that much attention shown to it from, if we look at the esports industry as a whole. And I think our kind of pitch is to be that, that British organisation that has come from the UK, exploded onto the European scene, and will give those UK fans someone to really cheer for and create some fandom in this region. And that's what we're here to do.
That's fair enough. Now, you have a couple video pieces on your YouTube channel that do explain this, but in sort of, like I said, a more elevator pitch format. Can you just give us the rundown of how you guys started and what your history is, particularly in League of Legends, although I know you have players in various games?
Yeah, so we love to tell the story, which is a completely true story, of my brother and I sitting across a table in a Wetherspoons pub in Britain, and just chatting about the esports industry. We're both huge gamers. That's how we bonded growing up. We still do to this day, play video games together. And we were just chatting about what we were seeing going on in Korea, North America, I used to watch the MLG Halo events. I was really into those, and we're just talking about what was going on here in the UK and whether there even was an esports scene. And you know, I even that early on, I had this idea of the branding aspect of exceL, and you know, being shortened to an X and an L, and just like playing around with these ideas. And then we looked into the scene and we saw there was a UK esports scene, a very dedicated scene, but it wasn't commercialized at all. It didn't really have any big players in it, so we thought actually to, you know, let's just start a team and do it as a hobby. I think we went. I got my best mate's dad to print us some T-shirts with our first sponsor on the back and our logo that I drew myself, which was horrible. If you find an image of that, it's hilarious. And we went across along to our first tournament, which was a Call of Duty tournament. Played in that, and I think everyone just kind of saw that we were trying to do things a little bit differently. And we just played on that, and as we could only grow as fast as the industry could grow, especially in the UK. So we grew within our means, continued to establish ourselves, broke into League of Legends in sort of 2015, moved from console to heavily focus on PC at that point. Played in all of the national UK competitions, have consistently done really well in those. And then, the previous European League of Legends setup with the Challenger Series was very difficult for a team from the UK to be able to actually enter that and enter the LCS after that. So we never really broke into the Challenger Series or, you know, even got close really. But then when Riot revamped their Tier 2 European competition, they created the European Masters, which I think is a really cool product. We were in the first season of that, representing the UK, and ended up finishing as the highest placed UK team in 5th to 8th. Just missed out on the live finals, which unfortunately were actually in the UK, so that would have been great, but never mind. And that was kind of our highest point in League of Legends up until the application process for the LEC opened up. And yeah, we applied.
Can you tell me a little bit about, you mentioned that kind of at the beginning of this that you guys were trying to do something different even early on when you were just, you know, some guys going to a COD tournament. Can you tell me what is that? What do you believe is the thing that is different about exceL then? Because it's clearly something that you believe has been there since the very beginning.
Yeah, for sure. I think we kind of have three values that we try and always stick to, which are professionalism, honesty, and integrity. I think integrity goes without saying. Anyone playing at a professional level has to have integrity, so that doesn't really set us apart. The professionalism aspect was really lacking in UK esports. Those of the people listening to this who are from the scene will understand what I mean, in that everyone was really dedicated, the fans were great, everyone was really passionate, but there wasn't that much business background in the scene, so it couldn't really develop. We weren't developing any infrastructure, we weren't moving forwards, we were just really enjoying where we were. So I think the professionalism aspect helps. I have a legal background, and my brother has a kind of standard corporate background with management consultancy. I think that background really helped us get things rolling. And then with honesty, we've always been completely transparent from the beginning with fans, staff members, players. I like to think every single player that has ever passed through the exceL organization has come out as a better player and person, the other side of it. And I think hopefully, I don't want to speak on their behalf, but I think hopefully they would say the co-founders and all the management team behind exceL have always been upfront with them and honest about everything. And that's something that we want to continue to do now.
So, without knowing all the ins and outs and details of your backstory, this sort of strikes me as a bit of a Cinderella story for you guys. As you said, small organization. I think did you start in 2016? Is that correct?
14, sorry.
14.
But yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
A little older than I thought, but the point remains, coming from a region which you categorize as sort of underserved in terms of esports, And you look at the other players who are in the LEC, and they're either legacy organizations or people coming in from other sectors of esports with a lot of clout and probably a fair bit of money as well. Add to that, you look at the rumored denied applications into the LEC, and there are some, if they're to be believed, massive players in that as well, including like huge European soccer clubs. And if I know the name of them, then they're really big. So I guess my rambling question ends here. How did you manage to secure a spot? How did you endear yourselves to Riot Games to get this franchise spot?
It's a great question. I think it was like 6 months ago now when we started this process, and we kind of went back to the drawing board and said, look, guys, we've established ourselves in the UK, but to be honest, in the grand scheme of things, we're very small. We know the sort of players, as you mentioned, who are going to be applying to the LEC are huge. What is it that kind of sets us apart? What is our offering going to give that someone else can't? And it's a lot of things I've already spoken about, I think, and our approach in general to this industry. Really caring about our players, putting our players first, but also having the business nous to back that up and develop them and the business in lots of different areas and lots of different verticals. So I think Riot really bought into that, and actually they kind of trusted us that we would deliver on what we said we'd deliver on. But also our focus on regionalization, which I'm not saying the teams that didn't get in weren't focused on that. I just mean in general, our approach to regionalization was very refined. We clearly have an authentic backstory in the UK that we can build stories around throughout the LEC season. And I think we really, really focused on that because we believe esports blew up globally, and now is sort of being pushed regionally, pushed back down into the regions. We see with the Overwatch League, they've tried to do it straight off the bat. I see that trend developing more and more in esports because people love to support their local people. It doesn't matter if you outgrow your local roots, such as if we look at huge football clubs such as Barcelona. Everyone in Barcelona supports Barcelona, but also everyone around the world supports Barcelona. But they clearly have their roots situated in one regional area. I don't think esports, we're quite ready necessarily for region specific, but country specific, I think we are. So that was kind of what differed our offering, I think.
Fair enough. Now, is it safe to say then, given what you just said, that your UK-ness, your Britishness will be part of exceL's DNA and branding and vibe when it comes to your presence in League of Legends?
Massively so. Yeah, 100%. It's what's got us this far, and it's what we continually want to play on. Not in a way that shuts us off to our European cohort and our European fans. We hope that they will celebrate everything that is good about Britain and the UK and kind of join us on that journey. Everyone loves the Queen, everyone loves the London bus, everyone loves the London Eye, the Houses of Parliament. We've got some really cool stuff that hopefully people will really buy into and enjoy the process of all of the content that we'll produce around where we're from and so on and so forth.
I'm interested because we do have, like you mentioned, the Overwatch League, and the Overwatch League is specifically regionalized, and we have a London team, a British team in the Overwatch League, now one that is not necessarily British in ownership. But I'm wondering how you feel about having, this is now essentially you've been given this spot, you have said that your pitch to Riot was at least partially built on this idea of being the British team. How do you feel about having this essentially competition in your backyard, right? Having another British esports team competing, maybe not for the same fans, but at the very least competing for being the UK esports squad, as it were?
I welcome all competition in that respect, and on that point with the London Spitfire, I'm a huge fan of Jack Etienne. He probably doesn't know who I am at this point, but he may do in the future. I'm a huge fan of what he's done with his brand Cloud9 and with London Spitfire. I think his approach to esports is something that we've modeled ourselves on, and we will continue to do so, and me personally modeled myself on. I think his whole approach to everything he's done is fantastic. The London Spitfire are not based here. I think maybe in the future we will see them based here. I think, it's in that respect a completely different esport. It's like, I'm sure there are some crossover. I think the statistics are something like 10%, although, 63.3% of statistics are made up on the spot. And yeah, so I don't think we're competing with them in that respect. Actually, I think when I hear that, I think collaborations rather than competition. So yeah, I suppose we'll see what happens.
So Kieran, the other side to the equation of getting a spot in the LEC is, of course, the cash, right? You've got to get Riot to like you. You've got to get the money. And once again, if the rumors can be true, there are some people with a lot of money that did not make it in. So it's obviously not everything. However, did you have, any special investment, any funding rounds that we don't know about that allowed you to pony up the ask for the franchise spot?
Yeah, so obviously the buy-in fee and everything surrounding that is public. So yeah, there is some serious cash needed in order to be a part of this league. We were recently, before this was all announced, acquired by Guinevere Capital, which is a sports-based investment firm in Australia, actually. They do a lot of esports investments over there. They own the Dire Wolves, which is the best OPL League of Legends team. And they recently acquired us, but then we also, for this application, as this is kind of a step up, we got together a consortium that was led by the JRJ Group, which is a UK-based investment firm. And those guys really led the charge on this, and we were able to secure the necessary funding. So, yeah.
Okay, sounds good. That was a much simpler answer than I was expecting. Makes total sense. Are you going to, you've already got a number of title sponsors like Open by HP and et cetera. Are you going to be carrying them into the LEC, or are those deals sort of changing because of your step up in the esports world, added visibility, added market reach, et cetera?
So right now, as you can imagine, operationally, things are absolutely ridiculous at our end. So my focus, although in the future will be pretty much purely commercial, at the moment I'm all hands on deck with operational. So I haven't put as much thought, I will admit, into our commercial strategy as is going to be needed to be put in over the coming weeks. That being said, as you rightly pointed out, Omen is our headline sponsor right now. We are in discussions for renewal with them. But we are opening conversations up all over the place at the moment. So yeah, I can't give any more than that at the moment because, to be honest, we haven't even got round to putting in enough thought to that. So
fair enough. Now comes probably my favorite question with these kind of podcasts, which is, how are you going to endear yourself to fans? Now, you kind of already partially answered it with the UK identity, but as we went over a few times as well, you've got some pretty big competition in terms of the market share of people watching the LEC. Some teams that have been in that league or the previous iteration of it for quite some time, some of which have seen incredible success, already have a ton of fans, already have a bunch of brand cachet. So I feel like you guys have your work cut out for you in that regard.
Yeah, massively so. You're completely right. I think what's interesting at the moment, if you look at the esports landscape, is it has a ridiculous amount of viewers and fans for the specific industry. So let's just focus on League of Legends. There are loads of League of Legends fans out there, right? And loads of League of Legends esports fans out there. What I don't think we've really cracked is fandom for specific teams. So you'll see a lot of people that are fans of multiple teams and might change jersey that they wear to these events from day to day. I don't think we've nailed fan engagement in esports yet. So whilst you're correct and we are competing with some huge brands, these brands are really, really well known, but I don't know if they have massive following in terms of pure fandom behind them yet. So I think they've got their work cut out for them also to turn these followers and these viewers into true diehard fans. I think the way we've positioned ourselves, which I've kind of banged on about in this interview with the UK angle, it gives UK fans of League of Legends, of which there are loads, a clear clear way to engage, from a fandom aspect. That being said, as well, we have the advantage that we are smaller, as we've pointed out, than the other existing brands, which means we can adapt more easily to fans' wants and wishes, and we can take fans from our, I think it was mentioned, the Cinderella story. We can take fans on that Cinderella story. Imagine the LEC starts in January, and we have Fnatic week 1, let's say, and we beat them. I mean, what a story that is from a team that no one's really expecting to do that well in the first season, at least, to actually come out of the blocks really, really hot. Now, I'm not saying that's definitely going to happen. I would obviously love for that to happen, and it would help build the brand massively straight off the bat. But regardless of actually what happens in the first season, I want to make sure we take our fans on that journey, ups, downs, everywhere, just being completely honest with them. You might see my face talking to the camera quite a bit and just giving quite frank outlines of what's going on in the organization, so we're completely transparent and people can feel like they can really relate to us.
So before we touch on some of the stuff you said, because there's some interesting stuff there, I'm interested in your claim that you feel like a lot of League of Legends fans aren't necessarily fans of teams, because about a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago now, I did a lot of research into EULCS viewership and looked actually individually, game by game, team by team, and I found that realistically, people actually did tune in much larger numbers for certain teams than other teams, and it wasn't necessarily skill-based. You would find that a Fnatic game and a G2 game would do much better than pretty much any other game. And I basically, I kind of want to put this to you. I do think that people are rather large fans of these teams, and maybe part of it is because they're fans of their talent. They're fans of guys like Perks, guys like Caps, guys like Reckless. But and back when I did the research to a certain extent, Sven and Mithy, I do think that people are fans of these teams. I'm not necessarily sure. I guess my question of this is, do you feel like that viewership, that just tuning into a game, doesn't make them specifically fans of that team, even when they aren't necessarily watching other teams' games?
I think it's a really good point, and I think it's a completely fair one. I think the two teams you picked up on there have actually done a really, really good job for what I was kind of talking about previously. They're kind of a step ahead of a lot of the other teams. They've built great stories around their players, which means that fans have really bought into those brands. Be interesting to see how they do with there's quite a bit of shift up in those rosters, and whether fans stick with the brand or whether they follow the players or not. I don't know the answer to that, to be honest, so we'll kind of see what happens there. But in terms of, I agree with you, people are coming to watch these brands, but I think there's another level of fandom, if you want to think of it like an engagement ladder, and they're kind of at step 2 right now, but not that many of them are at step 3, where they're completely immersed in the brand, and they love everything they do and they follow the ups and downs. Now, this isn't for everyone. There are exceptions to every rule, but I think based on if you think of it like a funnel, so based on the viewership at the top, going all the way down to fandom at the bottom, it's a huge pyramid at the moment, where we've got a very few amount of people in the fandom zone at the bottom, but loads of people in the funnel at the top. So the market share for actual fans is actually not that already already taken up, if you like, because there's still all of these viewers at the top that have yet to align themselves with brands, in my opinion. Now, I quite happy to be told I'm wrong and been shown statistics, but from what I've seen so far, that is the case, and we hope that we can kind of tap in at the top level and take fans on that journey for them to quickly become true fans of exceL.
I want to continue that previous talk about how to engage fans and how to endear yourself to fans, because I think you had some interesting points in there that I might want to unpack a bit more. And we spoke a little bit earlier on the podcast and before we went live about previous interviews we'd done with NALCS team owners prior to that league's franchising. And this is a question I put to them a lot. And one thing that I kept getting over and over again, not from every single owner or manager, but from a lot, was, well, we're going to win, and winning in esports is important. And absolutely no one would deny that. That's just a ridiculous thing to, not value, of course, competitive success. However, not everyone can win. Which was something I said to a lot of team owners, right? It sounds stupid and obvious, but it's a truth you have to grapple with, and somebody's going to be at the bottom of the league. Now, I'm not saying it's you. I'm not saying it's Fnatic. I'm not saying it's Rogue, but somebody will be there. And there's a certain team that comes to mind in the NALCS that banged the drum really hard about, well, we're going to win, and that's all that matters. And they didn't win anything ever, kind of. And guess what? The engagement wasn't really there because their brand was built on that foundation, which they just failed to lay for at least the first two splits. And so given that, I'm wondering, other than the obvious thing that, you're going to try to top the league and win and get the best players and stuff, what other strategies? You mentioned, I love the self-awareness. Well, I almost spilled my water there. I love the self-awareness about the Cinderella story angle. I think it's extremely important for esports organizations to understand the lore surrounding them or build the lore surrounding them from a fan perspective. But what else would you guys be looking to do that builds split-long, lifelong fans of exceL, even if you don't, win your first split out of the gate?
Yeah, I mean, you're 100% right. We've had internal meetings about this where we're saying, look, guys, there are 10 teams in this league. Someone's going to finish in 10th place. Now, we don't want that to be us, because with this Cinderella story and being this, plucky British underdog, if we do actually finish 10th, people are going to be like, told you so. Do you know what I mean? We are really, really keen to come out hot and finish in a respective place and take some of the top teams to the wire, if not beat them, straight away in split one, to show that we are doing things in the right way to improve. Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that we're going to win the first split. What a great story it'd be. But I'm not going to say that, and our business plan does not rely on us winning the first split. It relies more on actually building the personalities within our brand and tying them closely into all the messaging that we've already talked about on this podcast, the British nature, and the way we've done that in the past, and the way we want to continue to do that as well is celebrating the talent of the people within our organization, both players and coaching staff. Something that I think that we can do really, really well, and it buys into this idea of excelling and excellence, is showing just how talented our players are and just how talented our coaches are. Whether that be through tips and tricks guides, to champion guides in League of Legends, or patch breakdowns with our coaches, or whatever it is, we need to celebrate the level that these guys are at, because I think the endemic esports fans completely get that, but some of the more casual fans maybe don't understand quite the level that these guys are playing at. I'm often in conversations with traditional sports people, and I've played a sort of semi-professional level of traditional sport myself, and saying to them, guys, the level of strategy that goes into a tier 1 League of Legends game is far beyond and far more in depth than any traditional sport. And then you get the wide eyes, like, this guy's talking crazy nonsense. And it's true. I mean, the level that our coaches go into to prep for a game, and the different circumstances that they have to address, and the situational plays that they have to talk through, far beyond anything in traditional sport, just because of how many decisions professional esports players are having to make in the space of a few seconds. So we really want to celebrate that, and we think that although yes, we are a media and entertainment brand and we want to entertain our fans, we also want to provide them loads of value by showing them that our playing staff and our coaching staff know some really cool stuff, and that they'll benefit from kind of engaging with that.
Right. So I hear a value being placed on the non-endemic fans, the people who maybe are a little bit newer to the space, in regards to the fans who have been here for a while and are pretty familiar with the game and have a lot of respect and knowledge regarding the skills of players and coaches and managers and things like that. is there a value in your organization that you guys have found placed on storytelling? Because I feel that even more than the celebration of mechanical skill, personally, and this might just be a Colin McNeil thing, you know, stop me if I'm crazy here, but the personality means so much. You know, I can't tell you how many times that we've done a podcast with someone because of news or what have you, and they're a player or on a team that I don't particularly follow or I'm not emotionally invested in, and I come away with it saying, oh, that was a great guy, like I really enjoyed talking to him, I'm going to watch his game. And now, you know, I've got the jersey, you know, that kind of thing. So I think that level of engagement for me is pretty effective too. Is your organization putting any emphasis on that end of things?
Yeah, you've hit the nail on the head. You're completely right. The telling the stories behind our players, you know, where they've come from, where they're at is so important to us. We ran in the UK national scene a behind the screens, we called it, kind of almost a reality show where it was very unedited clips of our players in our gaming house and how they interacted with each other on a day-to-day basis, what they went through, and we'd love to replicate that with our new LEC team in their facility. So expect to see some of that content from us as well, to really buy into the people we've got. What's great as well is because we've put such an emphasis on player development and developing them as people as well as competitors. You'll see a lot of content from us, stuff that maybe you haven't seen in esports, developing people as people. So doing a lot of team building exercises. You know, we're massive believers in physical training. You know, healthy body, healthy mind. All of these things that you'll see coming out in our content, and hopefully that'll build the personalities of our players. On this development point, it means that also we're very keen to pick up undiscovered mechanical talent that we think have the potential, because of their personality, to reach a massively high ceiling in terms of their in-game competition, but also in terms of their personal brands. You know, I'm happy to say that our recruiting process definitely hones in on personality just as much as it hones in on mechanical skill, to make sure that these players buy into the values of what we think is important and what we think the community think is important, and goes back to this idea of honesty. Want our players to embody that and be completely honest with their fans and show them everything that goes on behind all they see for, you know, 1 hour of an LEC game. We want to see all the other stuff as well, because we think that it's entertaining, it's fun.
Thank you for segueing into my next question very perfectly. I want to ask about what this roster will look like, because I think that also, like you said, right, that dovetails really well into how you build fans, right? Having personalities, not just big superstars, but up and comers too. And I want to know what you guys are looking towards. Obviously, like you said, you're still in the recruitment process. No announcements have been made. What are the players? What kinds of players and are you looking at, and how are you building this roster?
Yeah, so I'm not sure when this goes live, but you know, considering in an hour and a half we will be announcing our first player. I'm sure by the time this goes live, we will have announced maybe a couple.
You are correct.
You are
in that
correct.
Assumption.
You're absolutely correct.
So hopefully I can't speak right now, because who knows what you guys will go and tweet. But in terms of what's to come, you guys will see that there is a mix between well-known personal brands that buy into the exceL philosophy and what we stand for really, really well, and a mix of rookie talent that is up and coming, pretty undiscovered, that we think have a massive ceiling in terms of both mechanical ability but also personal brands. We believe that there were 50 players in the EULCS last split, and there are going to be 50 players in the LEC next split, right? There are going to be some really good players that miss out on teams in the LEC, and that just goes to show that I think there's so much undiscovered talent that hasn't been brought through yet. I just don't believe that there are only 50 League of Legends players that can play at that level. So we're very, very keen to focus on finding the next, the stars of tomorrow, if you like. and telling those stories with our Cinderella underdog story right alongside them, and build them as we build our own brand.
How much time have you had for this, process? Because obviously all the announcements were just made. We know that they were finalized a little bit beforehand. How long have you been able to build this roster, right? I'm curious just because we've seen a lot of players start to say on Twitter and through other sources that, hey, not on a team next year, going to work my hardest. Some big names, guys like Vander, I saw that, North Kieran, who was playing for Rocket. Not that, these are crazy huge superstars last split, but still they're, name players. I'm curious how long you guys have had to put this all together and to start searching for that, undiscovered talent on top of signing the bigger names.
Yeah, I mean, great players that you've just mentioned, and it will be a shame not to see them compete next split. For us, right back 6 months ago when we put in our application, we had a clear idea of a recruitment process on how we wanted to attack this should we be successful. There are a couple of names even that were mentioned at that point that we said these guys would be absolutely key to get in, for our brand in order to tell our story. And pleased to announce that we secured those guys. So things are looking great for us. And in terms of timing, operationally, it's been absolutely nuts to try and get everything up and running. Get the facility in the state that we want it to be in, and get the players that we want signed and over the line. You really don't understand it all until free agency period hits, and many sleepless nights. So sorry if I look a bit tired, but we're working really, really hard behind the scenes, and I'm really pleased to where we've got to. The roster is all but sorted. One thing I will say is that we at exceL are very, very keen on building a 10-man roster. So whilst we will compete across the LEC and the UK national leagues, we would quite like to emulate the Cloud9 model in that we think that fluidity between this 10-man roster is really, really important. I think, again, this is something we will see from most teams going forwards. We're very, very keen on that, and that's why we're so keen to bring in rookies at the lower end and bring them through. Although we will also see some rookie talent in our starting five, if you want to call it that, come the first game of the split. So that's kind of where our process is at. Massive focus on player development, and really excited to start announcing players.
Well, I was going to say when you brought that up and before you said it explicitly, well, you did say you admired Jack earlier, so the 10-man roster makes a lot of sense. That's a nice detail to share. Thank you for that. That's something that we were really excited to see competitively from Cloud9, especially given the ups and downs and ending on an up of the year. So that's a very cool approach. Now, we've said that it's super early days. We know you've got sleepless nights from free agency period, and you haven't even had time to deal with the sponsors. So I know you haven't had time to deal with this next question, but I'm going to ask it anyway, which is, are you looking to potentially, if all things go well in the next few splits, break into other tier 1 level esports?
Great question. You're completely right. We're definitely nowhere near ready to answer that question with any form of real conviction. Have they been discussed? Yes, very preliminary. Right now, our focus is purely on League of Legends and the LEC. If the right opportunity arises, yes, we will take it. What that opportunity looks like, I have no idea. What esport that is, I have no idea. But I would be ridiculous to sit here and say, if a good opportunity comes begging that we're gonna let it go. So yeah, it's definitely within the realms of possibility.
Oh, well, there goes my exclusive exceL CSGO team announcement. Maybe next time. There are one or two notable UK players these days in that game. So, the wheels turned. I'm not going to lie, in my head.
Big Smooyer on that point. Used to play in exceL, and we're big fans of him. So really, really keen to see him doing well.
Is the player that came to mind, and I was not aware that he used to play on exceL. That's incredible, actually.
Yeah, very briefly, but we have a great relationship with Owen still, and it's great to see him doing so well.
Yeah, no kidding. He's shot up like a real star. Now, Dan, I did interrupt you there.
I mean, you didn't interrupt me so much as I have another question. That's all.
I preempted you.
You preempted me. Yeah. That's all. It's never an interruption.
I'm allowed to do that. I'm the host.
Exactly. I'm the trusty sidekick today.
Sure.
Yeah. What I was gonna ask is, we've talked a lot about this sort of like really focused stuff about, you know, what your next year looks like, how you're building right now. I kind of want to zoom out a little bit before we start to wrap up, and I want to ask what your kind of general thought on this franchise system is. Like you said, you guys have, you know, obviously in something of the smaller leagues, but you've been around in the European League of Legends scene at a lower level for a while, in a non-franchise system, in a purely, you know, merit-based system. And I want to ask about what your thoughts are on a move to a franchise-based system are. Like, how is this good for the scene, and how so?
Yeah, so we're personally really, really big fans of this long-term partnership franchise system, whatever you want to call it. Ever since it was announced, we were very, very keen to get involved, and instantly went out and were speaking to investors about the potential that this has for growth in the future. I think the way it has developed has been great. I think there's been collaboration on team side, league side, in order to get an agreement that works for everyone across all the 10 teams. And I think we've reached a consensus where everyone's really, really happy. The way that this is going to work from a commercial sense, for me, is exactly what esports needs right now. Like, I know everyone throws around the term wild, wild west, but in some cases it was. In a lot of esports, it really did feel like that, and it was really, really hard, no matter where your passion was, how much you loved your players that you were building. It was really, really hard to actually build a business case around some of these esports. Believe me, we've tried in a lot of them, and it was really, really difficult. To have this clear structure and a franchising system makes conversations with investors a lot easier. It makes conversations with brands that want to sponsor you a lot easier, because you've got stability. You can build a genuine 5-10 year plan, which just we couldn't do prior to this. So I'm a really, really big fan. It has helped us refine our model and our approach to esports. And yeah, just I think this is what we needed. This is what League of Legends needed. This is what esports needed.
I'm really interested in your comment. This is something we hear a lot, right? That it's a lot easier to talk to sponsors, that it's a lot easier to, makes the business case a lot easier. And I'm curious how, can you tell me a little bit about that, right? How, when you went to a sponsor before and you went to a sponsor and you go to a sponsor now, whether it be an endemic sponsor or a non-endemic sponsor, what is the difference when you come to them and say, hey, we have a franchise spot? What changes there?
It's stability. When we're talking to sponsors prior to this, and they're saying, okay, can you give us your events list for 2019, and the expected footfall and the expected viewership on the different streaming platforms for this event? And I get to probably about March and then go, well, I don't know after that. I don't know where we're going to be. I don't know what esports events are going to pop up. I don't know what, we need to be completely flexible. Now, I can sell to a sponsor, okay, yeah, you need to do a sponsorship with us for a year, because we need to be able to be flexible throughout the year on what we do. But that's really, really difficult for them to quantify, and for them to have stability that their money is going to be well spent. Whereas if we can sell off the basis of this is a franchise system, these are all the dates you need to know about, here's the viewership figures, we know that we're going to be in this league for however many years, and the viewership should grow like this, therefore our sponsorship should grow like this. That is a much easier conversation, as I'm sure you can imagine.
Absolutely.
Well, Kieran, thank you for that. And as we begin to wind down this podcast, I just want to sort of cede the floor to you one last time, and just give you a platform for any final thoughts, any statements you want to make that you didn't get a chance to, a topic you wanted to bring up that we never did, or just a message to the fans.
Yeah, I suppose at this point it's just a thank you. The response on Reddit, despite all the stuff we've talked about, maybe we weren't the most well-known coming into this, maybe we weren't as expected as some other teams to be accepted, the response has been mostly massively positive. The response to having a UK team to support, the response to having an authentic honest brand to get behind that is going to be front and center and tell you everything that's going on behind the scenes. The response we've had just from a couple of announcements, just a couple of videos, has been awesome. Reading the Reddit comments is now a new hobby of mine, and I just scroll them and they just make me smile. Even the meme ones, and even the ones that are slating us, you know, they're enjoyable. It's interaction if nothing else. But you know, in general, I'd say the response has been so positive, and thank you so much to those of you who have put out those comments and put yourselves on the line saying exceL's my team now. That is the best thing for me to read, is when I see new fans just buying into everything we're doing. So thank you. Join us on this amazing journey that we're about to go on in the next few years, and yeah, get behind us and get loud in the Twitch chat.
Oh boy, you know things are going well when you're enjoying reading the Reddit comments.
Yeah, right. You're the only person who's ever said that on Earth.
I do genuinely enjoy it. It's been great. They're really positive. I mean, go and have a look at them yourselves. They're really positive in general.
Well, Kieran Holmes-Darby, thank you for that, and thank you so much for making time for the theScore Esports podcast. I will definitely be watching exceL's first split with a lot of interest.
Come on, get behind the boys.
Let's do it.
Absolutely. All right. Well, we're gonna close things out. So thanks so much for joining us, Kieran.
Yeah, and I hope we can get you back on maybe after your first split, somewhere between spring and summer, and do a pulse take on your first LEC experience.
Guys, as I say, thank you so much for having me on. I am a genuine fan. I wasn't trying to make you like me saying that. I am a genuine fan of the podcast. It's a pleasure to be on anytime. Please invite me back, and happy to chat about anything.
Oh, will do. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kieran. Have a good one.
Thanks,
Bye.
guys. Thank you, guys. See you later.
Well, that was nice.
That was fantastic. It's rare, you know, obviously people have been on the podcast several times and have thus listened to the podcast several times. So but it's nice to have someone just say that they enjoy it, you know?
Yeah, exactly. We got a little bit of that Reddit comment, love ourselves, just right from Mr. Kieran Holmes-Darby himself. I will say my greatest disappointment about that interview is that the revelation they are not, in fact, sponsored by Microsoft. Microsoft's not pulling the strings on exceL. The memes would have been great. But alas.
Alas.
Yeah.
Yeah, hopefully we get to see those announcements soon. Obviously, as we come out of this recording booth, I'm sure we'll hear about them.
Yeah, well, those of you listening to this on YouTube, you'll know.
You'll know what they are.
Yeah, we'll be late on that. I can guarantee that. We've got a bit of a backlog in terms of podcast publishing right now. But no, I really will. I'm definitely going to watch the exceL's first game, and I'm going to follow them the first split. Mm-hmm. I'm hooked a little bit. The enthusiasm of Mr. Holmes-Darby is infectious.
Absolutely.
I think. And I love when we get owners that have that. He gave me a little bit of when he was talking about transparency and putting the camera in front of himself and managers and people behind the scenes, gave me a little bit of an optic vibe, gave off that kind of energy.
I think there's really a sense of I don't want to color him as an outsider, but he definitely comes off as a guy who has really studied a lot of these other esports teams, right? Mm-hmm. His admiration of Jack coming through. It comes off as a guy who's really, as an organization, who is watching other teams, seeing what they're doing well, and trying to use that. And I think that's really important for guys who are a little bit smaller.
I think it's just really important in general, because we've seen people, and I'm not just talking about League of Legends, who have come in with a bit of a holier than thou attitude because of their place in maybe another ecosystem, like traditional sports ecosystem, and they just think they have all the answers, and it just turns out that they don't succeed anywhere. Competitive content, brand recognition, etc. So to me, if you're the biggest fish, if you're the smallest fish, if you're a medium fish, that is sort of, from my layperson perspective, essential to success.
Absolutely, totally agreed.
All right. Well, on that lovely note, let's wrap this up. For the absent Josh Burry, for Daniel Rosen, I'm Colin McNeil saying thank you so much for listening. And until next time on the theScore Esports podcast, I'll just bid you GG.